So good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm privileged to be here. I want us to talk about and be able to revise as we approach Kcse 2026. I want us to look at how the paper for Kcse 2025 looked like. And I'm starting with paper 1. So I want us to look at paper 1 from question number 1 to the last question. So feel free, remember to subscribe, remember to share so that we can reach as many people as possible. So let us begin. Now, question number 1. In the year 2025, question number 1A, state the characteristics of the living organism illustrated in the diagram. Now, when you look at this diagram, you can see there's a characteristic that is trying to be being demonstrated by using an illustration. You can see there's a stove here, then there is, when there's a stove, I think this one should be a hot pan or a pan. Then there's a hand that is showing some motion. That is, you can see it's like it has touched and it's moving away. So when you look at this one is a response. It's a characteristic, but it's a response to a certain stimulus. In this case, a stove means there is heat here, and therefore this is an action of actually withdrawing the hand after touching that stove. So in this case, this is a characteristic of living organism, and in this case we call it irritability, or sometimes we can call it sensitivity. Irritability or sensitivity. Now, question B, they're asking us to state the significance of the illustrated characteristics to living organism. Now, the characteristic that has been demonstrated, which is irritability, may be having some significance. When I say significance, we mean some importance to the living organism. Now, and once the organism touches a hot pan, it removes, or the hand is removed by a response, which is a simple reflex. For those ones who have been able to finish the response and coordination, it's a response where it's called a simple reflex action, and this one enables living organisms to move away from unfavorable conditions. Because being a hot pan is an unfavorable condition, and therefore the action of withdrawing the hand, it's to enable that organism not to be harmed by that hot pan. And also it also enables that, apart from just enabling the organism to move away from unfavorable condition, it also enables the organism to move to favorable conditions. Question number 2. Explain how relaxation of the diaphragm muscles leads to exhalation. In terms of exhalation, we are looking at how relaxation of the diaphragm, when the diaphragm relaxes, how does that relaxation leads to exhalation of gases. Now, when the diaphragm relaxes, it causes that relaxation of the diaphragm muscles causes the diaphragm to form what we call a dome shape, and this dome shape will end up reducing the volume of the thoracic cavity. So being dome will reduce the volume of the thoracic cavity, and we all know when volume and pressure, they are inversely proportional. So when one increases, the other one decreases, and vice versa. So whenever for a fixed volume, if we try to increase or reduce volume for that fixed, the pressure for that fixed volume will do what? Will increase. So because the diaphragm has gained the dome shape, therefore it reduces the volume of that thoracic cavity, it will end up increasing now the volume, increasing the pressure in the thoracic cavity. So that pressure, when it increases in the thoracic cavity, it will now push the air out. Question number 3. The following diagram illustrates an organelle obtained from a cell. When you look at this organelle, this one is an organelle, and if it's an organelle, it means it has been obtained from a cell. A cell has organelles, so organelles are inside a cell. So the first question, identify the organelle. Now for this case, this one is a chloroplast. This one is a chloroplast. It is not chloroplasts, but it's a chloroplast. It's just one, so it's a chloroplast. We are being asked to name the part labeled E, and you can see the part labeled E has been rectangled or highlighted, and therefore the part labeled E is a granum, but we can also accept grana. Now explain how the part labeled E is adapted to its function. Now we are looking at grana. So how is this grana adapted to its function? First of all, when you look at it, you will see it is packaged in stacks. So it is packaged in stacks. We call them stacks, or we can call them the thylakoids. And that one makes it to look like it is folding. Some diagram, if you look at 3D diagrams, if you look, they look like they are folding. So we can also say they are highly folded. So you can say either they are packaged in stacks, or you can say they are packaged in thylakoids, or highly folded. And the reason why they are packaged in stack, thylakoided, or highly folded is actually to increase surface area for packaging of chlorophyll. And also apart from that, we can also talk about whatever it has. It also has chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is used for trapping light, which is used for photosynthesis. So it has also chlorophyll, which is used to trap light for photosynthesis. What I want you to notice is, when you are talking about adaptation, you first of all have to name the structure, then you explain for you to qualify to get a mark. So if you say it has chlorophyll, you must tell us what that chlorophyll is used for. Okay. Then question number 4, the following diagram illustrates an organism belonging to a certain class. So this one is a diagram. You look at that. That's an animal. Trying, maybe you can look at it very carefully. It's an animal and it's trying to feed maybe. So they're asking us question number A, name the class to which the organism belongs. So the organism belongs to class aves, and these are aves. What is the likely, question number B, suggests the likely habitat of the organism. When you just look at the organism very well. Look at the feet of that organism. If you look at the feet, they are webbed, and it has long feet and they are webbed. So definitely this one must be an aquatic or water habitated organism. So this one must be an organism from an aquatic habitat or a water area. Number C, state 2 reasons for your answer in B. So number 1 is it has long legs for wading. It has long legs for wading, and also it has webbed feet also for wading. Look at the beak. The beak is adapted for filter feeding. You can see it's for filter feeding. So there are 2 things there. We are looking at the long legs or webbed legs, which are for wading, and we're also looking at the beak of that organism or that animal, which is for filter feeding. For filter feeding. Question number 5A, name the type of muscle found in the following parts of the body. Number 1 is the heart. So heart has a muscle known as the cardiac muscles. The heart has muscles known as cardiac muscles. That's why if you study the heart, you become what you call a cardiologist, because you are studying the muscle of the heart, which are cardiac muscles. So you become cardiologist. Okay, maybe if you have a condition like a heart attack, and because the heart attack is affecting the muscles of the heart, that's the functioning of the heart, we shall say you have a cardiac arrest. So when we talk about the heart, what the muscle that the heart has, it is cardiac muscles. Then number 2, we are being asked about the alimentary canal. The alimentary canal, they have smooth muscles. Smooth muscles. Then state 2 roles of the muscles named in A2 above. So we are talking about the smooth muscles in the alimentary canal. Now when we talk about alimentary canal, major function of the alimentary canal is actually the passaging of food. It's just passaging of food. So the muscles that are there, they help in making sure that the food passes and moves very well through a mechanism known as peristalsis. So one of the roles is it enables peristalsis to take place. So what is peristalsis? That is the movement of food along the alimentary canal. Apart from that, we also have the same smooth muscles which are found around the stomach, and the major function of that smooth muscle which is found around the stomach is for churning. Churning is turning the food, not food, but turning the bolus that you have swallowed into a chyme. So that churning is called churning. That's mixing of food in the stomach. Question number 6, the diagram shows 2 organisms belonging to 2 different divisions. We have F and then we have G. Now look at those ones, then we look at the questions. As you look at them, we can now proceed to the question. And the question number A, they're asking, name the division to which each organism belongs. So we are looking at the first one is F, look at that, and then you have G. Which division do this organism belong? Now for A, not A but F, for F it belongs to division known as Deritophyta. Deritophyta, and we shall give maybe some of the reason later on. Number G, it belongs to Spermatophyta. And for this case, I want you to be very careful. And for this case, spellings are very, very important. So you have to take care of the spellings. Wrong spellings equals to 0 marks. Explain why organism G is considered more advanced than F. Now we're talking about spermatophytes being more advanced than Deritophytes. So the reason why is because under G, the one we call the spermatophytes, in the normal language you say the seed-bearing plants or organisms, the seed-bearing plants. They bear seeds. So one of the reasons why we may say they are considered more advanced than F is they produce seeds. Okay? And if they produce seeds, they will also produce fruits. Some of them will produce fruits, and also they produce flowers. So in simple, we are saying there's sexual reproduction. Now, G has also more developed vascular bundles. If you look at organisms that belong to division G, they have phloem and xylem. So they have a well-developed transport system, which has both tracheids and vessels. So it's more advanced than F. Question number 7. The following diagram illustrates cells found in mammalian body. And we can look at those cells. They have cell membrane here, we have nucleus, and then we have hair-like structures above here, hair-like structures above there. So identify the type of cell illustrated. When you look at this cell, looking at what they have, cell membrane, they have a nucleus, and then they have hair-like structures. This one must be the epithelial cells. Epithelial cells. Then Roman 2, name 2 parts of the mammalian body where the cells are found. Now, epithelial cells are found in very sensitive parts of the body because they have the cells that are found on the epithelial cells, the cilia-like structures, they are meant to detect especially foreign substances entering very delicate places. Like for example, the lungs. When you move towards the lungs, you move to the trachea, you must have these kind of cells. Why? Because they they help in actually detecting entrance of either foreign, like now food, maybe dust particles, etc., so that it avoids damaging, or it prevents the lungs from being damaged. So number one, it is in the trachea. They are there. They're also in the nasal cavities. They're also found in the bronchi. They're also found in the respiratory tract, and also they are also found in the oviduct, and or what we call the fallopian tube. And in the fallopian tube or in the oviduct, their function is we talk about wafting. They help in the wafting of the ova immediately it has been released after what we call ovulation. So they help in wafting of the ovum. State the function of the cells in any of the parts named. I think I've talked about in the oviduct about wafting, but I'll give another one. In the ciliated in the respiratory tract, they help to move the mucus. The ciliated in the respiratory tract, they help to remove mucus. In the oviduct, they help to move the ovum or the zygote or the blastocysts. You know, once our ovum has been fertilized, it becomes a zygote, blastocyst. They help to move it so that it can reach the uterus. So question number 8. The following diagram illustrates a stage of development of a human fetus. Now when you look at that, we have this part labeled K, we have another one J, then we have a cervix. We are being asked to state the function of J. So when you look at J, I think J is pointing at the fluid which is inside here, under the human fetus, and that fluid should be the amniotic fluid. And the major function of the amniotic fluid, first of all, is provide support. It also insulates or protects the fetus from mechanical, physical, maybe shock and lubrication. So it makes sure that the fetus, in this case, is protected from mechanical or physical shock. And also it provides insulation, it also provides support, and also it provides lubrication. So, and then question number B, how is the part labeled K adapted to its function? So we have part labeled K. I think part labeled K is the umbilical cord, and the major function of the umbilical cord is actually to connect between that is the fetus and maybe the mother. So it connects between the fetus and actually the placenta. So it has a connection between the fetus and the placenta, and it has rich blood supply. That part labeled K has rich blood supply. It also has very, very many arteries and veins. And the reason why it has so many arteries and veins, and also it has so many it has a rich supply of blood, is to relay nutrients and transport waste effectively. So in this case, arteries transport waste, but veins, they transport nutrients. And when we talk about nutrients, oxygen is part of the nutrient, so vein also transports what? Oxygen. Now, number 9, explain why sugary foods are harmful to teeth. Explain how sugary foods are harmful to teeth. Now, we have been told all the time that when you take sugary foods, they will affect your teeth. So how is this possible? Now, the reason is this. Sugary foods must be broken down, and breaking down of a sugary food is done by bacteria. Now, these bacteria that will be breaking down the food remains in your teeth, they produce acids as their waste. So that acid, because remember the food is cloaking inside maybe the teeth, and therefore when the bacteria is working on that food, breaking it down, those bacteria, they release waste, and that waste is in acidic form. So that acidity that is being released will corrode the enamel, that is the outer layer of the teeth, and in that case it will result into what we call cavities. It will result into cavities. Now, Form 3 students constructed the following food web for organism in a certain ecosystem. So we have a hawk, which is feeds on snake, feeds on owl, feeds on mouse, feeds on rabbit. Remember the arrow points to the eater. Then you have fox, which feeds on mouse, rabbit. We have a rabbit which feeds on blackjack. We have mouse feeding on blackjack. We have the owl feeding on mouse. We have snake feeding on frogs and birds, but being fed on by the hawk. We have the locust, which is being fed on by the frog and the birds, but the locust feeds on the grass. So from the food web, the first question they're asking us, identify the organism which is both tertiary and secondary consumer. Which is both a tertiary and a secondary consumer. Now in this case, it's just a hawk. That we are talking about organisms which belongs to both stage 3 and 4. Both tertiary and secondary consumers. So that one, hawk belongs in that stage. Then question number 2, that is A2, construct a food chain that ending with the organism name in A as a tertiary consumer. So in this case, they want us it to end in the 4th stage. So the first one is the one we're talking about, that hawk. We shall have the longest chain, that is the blackjack being fed on by the mouse, and then the mouse being fed on by the owl, and then the owl being fed on by the hawk. So in this case, the hawk forms what we call a tertiary consumer. Then question number B, name the mode of feeding exhibited by the snake. So we look at the snake, the mode being, in this case, the snake is feeding on frog, and also it's feeding on birds. So it's feeding on frog and birds. So in this case, it's just a carnivore. So it's a carnivorous because it's feeding on animals, on fellow animals. So it's a carnivorous. Question number 11, complete the following table on respiratory diseases and their causative agents. So the first disease we have is called tuberculosis. Now the causative agent for tuberculosis is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Now I want you to take care of these words because this one is a scientific name, and whenever we are writing a scientific name, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, first of all, spellings must be very correct. Number 2, you make sure that you follow all the rules of writing scientific names. So the first name should start with a capital letter, which should be physically capital letter. Okay, not just writing a number which looks like a capital letter. It should be having the capital letter features. Then the second name, tuberculosis, should start with a small letter, and then you underline them separately. The second disease, they want us to identify the second disease, but we have been given the causative agent. So the causative agent in this case is Bordetella pertussis. Bordetella pertussis, and Bordetella pertussis causes whooping cough. It causes whooping cough. Question number 12. Complete the following table to show the differences between mitosis and meiosis. So in the first Roman one, they're saying cells where it occurs. Now in mitosis actually occurs in the meristematic cells, and also it occurs in the somatic or body cells. Whereas meiosis occurs only in the gonads. We're talking about the testes, talking about the ovaries, and also talking about the anthers. That's where it occurs. Then Roman 2, we're talking about the number of daughter cells produced. Mitosis, remember, it occurs only in one phase, so it only produces 2 daughter cells, which have the same number of chromosomes as the parent. When you come to meiosis, it produces 4 daughter cells, which have the number of chromosomes as their parent. Question number 13. The following photograph shows a feeding relationship observed in a certain plant. So when you look at this, there's a stem here, then there's roots, and then when you can see at the roots here, there's some there's some swelling. There's some swelling here. So this swelling should be, this one definitely shows you that this one is a what? It's a leguminous plant. And those one must be the root nodules. So name the feeding relationship illustrated in the photograph. So if this is a leguminous plant, and this one must be the root nodules, then the feeding relationship is symbiosis, or what we call the mutualism. The symbiosis or mutualism. And the reason, that is question number A2, they're asking us to explain your answer. In the root nodules of leguminous plants, there are bacteria which are being hosted. Those bacteria, they are called the rhizobium bacteria. So the bacteria benefit from the roots by being given the shelter. Okay? And then the bacteria themselves, they help the plant by fixing nitrogen, which is used by the plant. So as the plant is providing carbohydrates to the bacteria, it's also providing shelter to the bacteria. The bacteria, they give back their hand, or they give back to, they appreciate by now fixing nitrogen, which is free in the air, fixing it into the soil, which is now used by the plant. So that's why they are living together in what we call a mutual relationship, a beneficial relationship. Now, question number B, give one example of a similar feeding relationship in animals. We have what we call cellulose digesting bacteria and the ruminant. So the cellulose digested bacteria are being hosted by the ruminant. So the ruminant hosts the cellulose digesting bacteria. So the cellulose digesting bacteria help the ruminant digest cellulose. Number 14, the following diagram illustrates a flower obtained from a certain plant. So you have the flower, this part M here, then this part N here. Question number A, state the collective name given to the floral parts labeled M and N. So for M, these are the female parts of the flower, and they have, you can see from the top, they have the stigma, they have the style, and then they have the ovaries. So the collective name for this will be gynoecium. You can say gynoecium or pistil. Gynoecium or pistil. Then for N, these are the male parts, which now you can see it has the anthers and also it has the filaments there. So for this case, they are called androecium or stamens. Androecium or stamens. Now question number B, Roman 1, they're asking, suggest the likely mode of pollination for the flower. Now when looking at this flower, we are going to suggest, and looking at the flower the way it is, you can suggest that it is an insect pollinated flower. Why? Because you can see the floral part. We can't say they are bright because the paper is not colored, but you can see the florals, so it means actually, and also looking at the stamens, they are all inside. Looking at the stigma, they are all inside, and then the floral parts are outside. Definitely this one is an insect pollinated flower. Oh, and in question Roman number 2, they're asking us to give a reason for that, why we are saying it's an insect pollinated flower. Number 1, you can see it has what we call large conspicuous petals. The stigma is above anthers, and the stigma is also located inside the flower. So those are some of the reasons why we are saying it's an insect pollinated flower. Number 1, it's the large and conspicuous petals. We also have stigma above the anthers, and we also have the stigma located inside the flower. Question number 15. Explain how low light intensity may bring about changes in the phenotype of some plants. Explain how low light intensity may bring about changes in the phenotype of some plants. So, light intensity is directly proportional to amount of photosynthesis, and therefore if you lower the light intensity, then you lower the rate of photosynthesis, and when you lower the rate of photosynthesis, you lower the rate of or you lower the amount of glucose being manufactured. Remember, photosynthesis produces glucose. So once you lower the rate of photosynthesis, because you have lowered the amount of light, definitely you lower the amount of glucose manufactured. And in this case, the plant will have to respond. So how will the plant respond? The plant will respond by having what we call elongated stems. So those stems will be trying to, sometimes we call them the etiolation. They will try to reach the sunlight. So stems become elongated, they bend, stems becomes weak, okay? They become thinner, and also the leaves become smaller and they become yellow. The leaves start becoming yellow. And at the end of the day, it alters the flowering time. It alters the flowering time. They ask us to draw the diagrams to illustrate the difference between a dicotyledonous and a monocotyledonous. So these are the diagrams. When you look at a dicotyledonous, when you look at them, the major difference between the dicotyledonous and the monocotyledonous is actually the venations. So when you look at this one is network venated, but this one is parallel venated. So their networks are parallel, but in this case they are networked. Then you can also see this one has a patio. This one, I don't know, this one has no patio. Question number 16. The following diagram illustrates embryos of chicken, humans, and fish at different stages of development. So we have the development stage, that is the initial and then final. At initial, the chick looks like that, the human looks like that, and the fish looks like that. Then at the final stages, you can see they have differentiated. So what can you say about this? First of all, in the initial stage, all the embryos look very much identical. But in the final stage, you find that they have differentiated into respective organisms. So they're asking us to name the type of evidence of organic evolution illustrated in that question 16a. And this one is a comparative embryology. We are comparing the embryos of different organisms. We're being asked question B, explain why the tail has been retained throughout the evolution of fish, but not in humans and chicken. And this one comes to the theory of use and disuse. This is because it is used in movement and propulsion. But in human, it's not used. Okay? In human and also in chicken, it's not used. We call it a vestigio. So that's why it has been maintained in fish. Okay? And that one is for propulsion, for movement, so it's under use. But in humans and in chicken, it has become a vestigial organ. Question number 16c. State one other component likely to be common in the blood of the three organisms that implies they have a common origin. So number one is the plasma proteins. All of them have plasma proteins. They have blood groups, that is antigens A, some have B, some have C. All of them have hemoglobin. They also have similar cell organelles. Okay? They also have prothrombins, they have antibodies, they have fibrinogens, and they have globulin. Question number 17. The following diagram illustrates an organism belonging to a certain class. Look at this organism. It has part labeled P, Q, and then part labeled R. So we're being asked to state how part labeled P, Q, and R contribute to the success of the organism. P, Q, and R. So P is for sensitivity. Then Q is for flying or movement. And then R has spiracles. This one R, this one has spiracles. It's actually the abdomen which has spiracles for gaseous exchange. Question number 17b. Account for the difference in pattern of growth in a mouse and the organism illustrated. So a mouse has what we call continuous growth, while the organism illustrated has what we call discontinuous or intermittent growth pattern. And this is due to the hard exoskeleton that it has, so it has to do what we call molding or shading it off before it moves to another stage. So for it to increase in size, growth will continue, but for it to increase in size, it must shed off. But in a mouse, there's continuous growth. Question number 18A. Explain how spilling of oil in a fish pond affects the flow of energy in the pond. Spilling of oil in a fish pond. Oil covers the water surface, and when it covers the water surface, it prevents entry of oxygen. It also clogs the stomata, which in that case now will reduce the intake of carbon dioxide. Remember, the plants and animals living in aquatic environment, they benefit from each other. Those plants clean the air, that is, they remove CO2 from water, and then they supply it with oxygen. But now when you cover it, you now prevent the same plants from taking up what? Carbon dioxide. Apart from that, the same layer also reduces penetration of light, which is now used for photosynthesis, especially for the submerged plants. And therefore, there will be less production of carbon dioxide. There will be a reduction in what? In respiration, because when there's low production, there is low supply of oxygen, the rate of respiration also does what? Reduces. And this one will cause it will cause less glucose being produced, because now photosynthesis is not taking place. It also causes less production of energy by those organisms in the plant. And in that case, the primary consumers shall be affected much, and also the submerged or subsequent submerged plants will also be affected. The following organisms were found in a certain ecosystem. So we have the tilapia, insect larvae, green algae, and then we have eagles. So you are being asked to sketch a pyramid of numbers of the organism in the ecosystem, and this is how it will look like. The green algae in this case are now the primary producers, so they benefit direct from the sun. Then the insect larvae will definitely feed on the green algae, and then the tilapia will feed on the insect larvae, and then the eagle will definitely feed on the tilapia. So that is how the pyramid shall look like. Now question number 19. In an experiment, student placed soaked viable bean seeds in a vacuum flask containing wet cotton, then inserted a thermometer in the flask and left the setup for 5 days in the laboratory. State 2 processes that the students were investigating in the experiment. So first of all, the seeds that were used were viable. Viable means they have potential of doing what? Germinating. They are viable seeds. Then we are also, in the process, we are also using a thermometer, okay, and also we are soaking them. So there's water, there's thermometer for temperature, etc. So what does it mean? It means these learners were looking at the germination of those seeds, and then they were looking at respiration, because the respiration produces heat. So they were also looking at respiration. That's why the presence of the thermometer. So they were investigating two things: germination and respiration. State 2 observations that the student made after 5 days. Definitely they will see an increase in temperature because of germination and respiration in that case, and they will also see an emergence of a plumule or a radicle. Okay, they will see an emergence of a plumule or a radicle. Question number 20. Name the antigen and antibody present in blood plasma of an individual with blood group A positive. So A positive means that individual has antigen A, and that person has also antigen D. They have both antigen A and antigen D. Now antigen D is actually the rhesus factor. Okay, and they also have antibody B, but we are being asked to get to write the antigen. The antigen is either antigen A or antigen D, and then the antibody in this case is antibody B. Then we look at how it's written. Antibodies are written in small letters. Suggest the possible recipient of the individual's blood. So this recipient, this individual can give blood to A, B positive, and can also give to A positive. Can give to A, B positive, and also can give to A positive. Name the physiological process that facilitates uptake of water from the soil through the root hairs. The uptake of water in the soil, especially in the plants, is done by osmosis. Reabsorption of sodium ions, that is Roman 2. Reabsorption of sodium ions from the kidney tubules is done by active transport. So uptake of water by the osmosis, but reabsorption of sodium ions from the kidney tubules is done by active transport. Question number B, that is 21B. Explain why grass withers when it is continually sprayed with salty water. Salty water has a higher concentration of, that is, salt solute, and therefore it is hypertonic to the cell sap of the grass, and that one will make the water to move out of the grass by osmosis. Remember, water will move by osmosis because it's now moving from a region of low concentration to a region of higher concentration, because once you supply water outside and it's highly concentrated, water will have to move from the cell sap of the grass to out of the grass by osmosis, and therefore the cells of the grass become flaccid and plasmolized. Okay, they become flaccid and plasmolized. Question number 22. The following diagram illustrates a mammalian vertebra. Question number E. Identify the type of the vertebra. When you look at this vertebra, there's part labeled T, and then there's the other part. When you look at it, it is definitely from the thoracic region, and this one must be a thoracic vertebra. A thoracic vertebra. We are being asked to name the bone that articulates with the vertebra at the part labeled T. This one must be a rib. This one must be a rib, but we can also accept ribs because we are pointing at 2 points. So you can accept rib or ribs. Now, question number C. Using observable features, explain how the vertebra is adapted to its function. Now, looking at that vertebra, number one, it has a very long neurospine, and the neurospine is to offer surface for muscle attachment. We look at it carefully, it also has facets for articulation with other bones. You can also see it has a neural canal, and this one is for the passage of blood vessels and also for the passage of the spinal cord. It also has what we call a heart-shaped. It has a centrium which provides support to the thoracic cage. And finally, it has a neural arc to protect the spinal cord. It has a neural arc to protect the spinal cord. So ladies and gentlemen, that one brings us to the end of paper 1 Kcse 2025. I want to wish you all the best as you continue practicing, as you continue exercise, as you continue revising for the Kcse 2026. I'll be back with more predictions on how you can be able to answer those questions. Please continue subscribing and sharing. Otherwise, be blessed and bye-bye for today. Thank you.